Hello everyone, welcome to viewer comments and questions. As you can see, it's just me this week. No Dan, he's still sick. Get well soon, Dan. Yeah, it's really hit him, this one. So he's got it on his chest and he's very, very unwell. So please get well soon, Dan. Hopefully you can see me and hear me. I've made it as humanly complex as possible this week, with all kinds of things going on. Pedal boards, more video cameras. There's the pedal board. I've got a third camera just to make it even more confusing when it fires up, because there's stuff on the floor. Look at that, mad. So we can get into it, and part of the reason for that is there's some questions that have come in tonight that relate to some of this stuff. So before we go any further, I'm just going to make sure that we are live and on the air, and yeah, we can get into it. Yeah. So, Plexico is on. Duncan, hello. Sebastian Brawl is on, wishing Dan a speedy recovery. I think we all do. Recovery. I think we all do. Rosie is interested in the Dan doll, which is not a toy. And it's also not Dan, is it, Rosie? Do you want to sit on here? Do you want to sit on here? Please don't step on any of my pedals. BV, we say thank you to BV for being in the chat and moderating all of that. Thank you so much, BV. Eagle Ray Rob is on. Michael Giliberto is on. Yeah, Ian Bogle saying a little bit quiet. Okay, we can work that out. But you can hear it sounds. Matt Swanton says, is this the live show where we hear Mick tell embarrassing Dan stories?
No. Rosie.
What's she doing? Trying to pull cables out. Get well soon, Dan. Get well soon, Dan. Nice looking board, Mick. Great. Live with sound and vision, says BV. Thank you. Yeah, cool. Welcome, everyone. Brian Garcia is on. Gabby Bergman is on from LA. David Dossett says, Clonflex. Well, there is a reason for this pedal board. Rosie, come here. Come on, you're being annoying. There is a reason for this pedal board, and that is that we had an experience day on Friday. Thank you to everyone who came. We always have a lovely time at experience days, and what I thought I'd do is put together a kind of Overdrive All-Stars. Now, you might think that there are some All-Stars that aren't on here, but you can see we've got a compressor, a fuzz face type, a tone bender type, a treble booster, an all-round booster, blues breaker, tube screamer, tube driver and clon. Now, of course, there are many others, but it felt... Oh, and a rat there, squirreled away down in the bottom. So it felt pretty good to have all of those things accessible. And if you cut to video 2, Bebbers, on the right on the floor is my normal pedal board, and that whole pedal Overdrive All-Stars board is being fed from one of the loops. And then to the left of that, you'll see a board with a rotosphere, a reverb and a delay on it, and that's being fed from another loop. So it's kind of not something I'd ever take out on a gig, but something that's really good fun for experience days, and hopefully everyone enjoyed it. All good. Evening, Mick and Rosie and everyone else in TPS Towers, says Simon V. RDJ. Hi, Simon. Thomas Gellner is on. Hi from Germany. Yeah, all good. Rosie here, hello, says Thomas Eichinger. Jackson de Jong says hello from Victoria, British Columbia. All the best, Dan. Hope Dan is on the mend. Get well soon, Dan, says DMK75. Yeah, Dan, I don't know if he's watching. He really is properly poorly, bless him. So we wish him all the speed in getting well. Again, I hope you can hear me. Bebbers, can you look at those audio meters on the screen of that Roland thing?
This.
Keep coming.
This.
Keep coming.
This one.
Keep coming towards me. Keep coming towards me. Up on top right of that thing.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What's it saying on the output? If I go, hello.
On the audio?
Yeah. Is there an output there on the right-hand side? Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
What's it saying? Is it getting anywhere near 0?
No.
Hello. Haha. Okay, yellow's good.
Above -20.
Yeah, it needs to be -6 really, but there we are. Okay.
Can I twiddle anything?
You can go over on there, on the black thing.
This thing?
Keep going left. Big knob in the middle.
This?
Turn it all the way up. All the way, all the way, all the way. Great, that might help a little bit. Sorry, everyone. Gareth says audio is good. Thanks, Gareth. Gareth Johnson. Okay. Chris Quinn says it's raining in Seattle. Yeah, it's raining here as well. It was. And now the sun came out today for about 2 hours and it was just like, it was like a whole new experience. Let us get into the super chats. Thank you to everyone who super chatted. I turned them off because there's quite a few coming in. We'll probably finish about 6:30 our time tonight, which is in 1 hour and 20 minutes for those of you watching from around the globe. First in with super chats this week. Plexico, Duncan, as always, thank you, buddy. Thank you for your continued generosity. Duncan says, greetings, Em. Thank you for the amazing show on Friday. The Les Paul sounded great. See you at NAMM. Yeah, there is a question about the gold top in a minute. We'll get into that. I'm really enjoying playing that guitar at the moment. It's a lovely thing. Thank you, Duncan. Michael Giliberto. Hi, Michael. Michael joined us on an experience day back along as well. He says, cheers all. Dan, best wishes for a speedy recovery. Travelling today, so catch you on the replay. Mick, please take a question from the chat, which I will. We'll go to, let's find a chat. Let's find a, let's see if I'm looking for, what I'm looking for is a question mark somewhere.
Will there be a Christmas tea this year?
Katherine says, will there be a Christmas tea this year?
Ed air fryer.
And Ed Airfire has asked that. Will there be a Christmas tea this year? Yes, there will. It's a partial reissue of one we've done before with some extra spangly accoutrement. It's really cool. We've done a gold top pedal deer. It's like, it's really banging. So yes, Ed, there will. They should be in any day, shouldn't they? In the next week or so.
End of this week. Hopefully.
Yeah, we signed them off last week, so thank you, Ed. Mike Turner says, Mick, have you ever invested in a guitar to upgrade, but it never met your expectations? I have a 1999 CIJ Jaguar, Japanese Jaguar, that probably needs a shim and a mastery bridge upgrade. Invest or sell, do you think? It's an interesting one, that, Mike. So the most recent guitar I bought I originally bought it with a specific intention to upgrade, the Gibson ES3 4.5. Played it and decided not to upgrade it. Played it some more and then decided it absolutely needed the upgrade. Now, what I could tell from this guitar straight off the bat, I could plug it in, but I think that would be gilding this particular lily. And actually not plugging it in for a second is more instructive to the answer. What I could tell straight from the get-go with this guitar is that it was a stunning instrument, regardless of whatever was in here and here and here. Just the way it rings, the way it resonates, its kind of own harmonic balance and content, which is chiefly important in a semi-hollow guitar, right? And I just knew that somewhere in this guitar was an absolute banger. So in that sense, it was totally worth it, and I knew from the get-go. Now, it might be with your Jaguar, did you say, or Jazzmaster? You might get a sense of that it's a really great guitar. Do you enjoy playing it? When you pick it up, are you like, yeah, this really works for me? Neck shims, they're all possible. All of that stuff, obviously. I've never met anyone yet that's installed a mastery bridge and been unhappy, or whole system. Those things are really amazing. Dan put one on his Johnny Marr Jag, I think, and Jaguar, yeah. Every time anyone said that they've done that. I've never known anyone to be unhappy. So if the guitar is resonant, you like the feel of it, you know, weight in guitars is really a very subjective thing. Personally, I like light guitars. So if the guitar is overly heavy, I wouldn't keep it. It might sound okay, or it might sound great, but I don't want heavy guitars. I can't deal with them. So there might be some factors like that that are telling you, actually, no matter what I do to this guitar, it's still the wrong color. It's still half a pound too heavy, in which case move it on. If everything else about the guitar is really working for you, then absolutely steam ahead. You will not regret a mastery bridge and or trem, I guess. So yeah, good luck. Good luck. So next super chat is from Thomas Gelnar. Hi Thomas. Thomas says, I discovered the Songtown podcast with a Nashville singer-songwriter called Clay Mills. He's wearing a TPS shirt in nearly every show. Do you know him? No, I don't, but it sounds like we should. Clay, if you watch this and you're aware of what's going on here, please get in touch. It would be great to say hi to you. And thank you very much for repping TPS. We massively appreciate it. So yeah, please everyone go and listen to the Songtown podcast with Clay Mills. And Thomas, thank you for the heads up on that. Thomas, you've been extremely generous with your next super chat question. Thank you, buddy. We massively appreciate it. He says, I'm ill, just like Dan. Best wishes. I'm learning with my Brian Setzer instructional video, struggling with tucking away the pick for fingerpicking and using the pick. I'm constantly losing the pick. Any advice? Maybe get Brian on the show. Oh man, Setzer on the show? Are you kidding? That would be flipping awesome, wouldn't it? Okay, let's try and make it as relevant as possible. This guitar's going to be massively out of tune because I don't play it very much. Again, we don't necessarily need to plug this in just for this. So what you're saying is, the old Chris Buck thing, oh man, saw Cardinal Black on Friday night in Bath. What a cracking gig. Chris, if you watch this and you're listening, or to anyone else that was there, met some lovely TPS people in the foyer, my goodness me, what a guitar sound. It just sounded epic. The rest of the band was awesome. Tom is always awesome. So yeah, what a lovely, lovely, lovely gig. Chris Buck, the reason I mention him is because he's a master at just tucking the pick away, right? For all your finger picking, if you want to do Travis picking like on a Gretsch. And then tucked away again. That's where I've got it tucked in between my second finger and my knuckle. But you know what? If you struggle with that and you're okay with potential asphyxiation, here's the best place for it. Stick it in your gob. There's people that will go, don't do that, because there's quite often on stage, especially when you're a bit nervous and you might take a sharp intake of breath and the next thing you know, you've got a piece of plastic lodged in your, what is it? Esophageal, whatever it is anyway, your throat. So that's what I do. But you do lose a little bit of dexterity there because one finger is kind of holding it. There might, anyone in the chat, how do you do it? But hopefully that's of help. Like I say, no need to plug in for that. Yeah, Chris, thank you for a wonderful gig, and Tom and everybody else in Cardinal Black. It was a monster gig. Very enjoyable indeed. Let's see what's going on over in the comments section. G Barge says it's definitely my method. Get picks which look like cigarettes and let it hang there. Oh, we didn't press record on the podcast, Bebbers.
Oh.
Balls. Can you press the red button at the top?
Up here?
Yeah.
This one?
Sorry, it's totally my fault.
That one?
Yeah, there's a big red button in the middle at the top. Thank you. Okay, to those people listening to the podcast, you missed the beginning of the show because, like an idiot, once again, I forgot to press record.
You need to train me.
Welcome. Well, it's a lot to be dealing with, isn't it, really? Anyway, welcome to our podcast listeners on Patreon. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being a TPS patron. We greatly appreciate your patronage. I'm just not going to get into that really brilliant song by Bonnie Raitt. There's patronising and there's being a patron of something. They are not the same thing, but I believe in America they are the same pronunciation. And it drives some people crazy. Anyway, it's all good. Moving on. Tim Chalmers says some people tuck their pick with their first finger or second or third, just takes a bit of practice. Sometimes I can slip a pick into a slot by my neck humbucker. Or if you've got a really shabby strap, probably in between the neck and the and the body. Yeah. Steve Mallam says, I normally listen to the podcast, but I actually managed to join the start of this one for live once. Serendipity. Daniel Williams says, so for those of us who are Patreons, which other things do you do to support them on there? Not a lot, to be honest, Daniel. We deliberately didn't set tiers for that reason. We decided, you know, you can pay any amount, I think. I think we suggest you pay $3 or something. Or £3. But yeah, it's enough to get the show out as it is. And it's sort of like, please support the show. And if you feel like you're not getting value from there, then please stop supporting the show. So it's the podcast predominantly. Giveaways. Oh yeah, giveaways. Actually, yeah, we do a monthly giveaway.
And some behind the scenes. Some
patron stuff. And there's the odd behind the scenes clip when artists come in. So it's not a huge amount. It's not like loads of additional content. But the giveaways, podcast, and bit of behind the scenes. Thank you for asking. Paul Matulovic. Hello, Paul. He says, Dan must recover quickly. How will anyone at TPS or Gig Rig open packages or cut cables if they can't positively identify what it is and it isn't a knife? It's not a knife. Sorry, it's an old Crocodile Dundee gag for those of you who didn't get it. And for those of you who did, hopefully you spat your coffee out, as I still do every time I watch it. We'll pass on your best wishes if he's not watching. Are you watching, Dan? You here? Bless him, he really is not very well. David Dossett. Hello, David. David says, I've a custom shop 57 Strat with Abbey pickups. Abbey, I think, means Abigail Ybarra, does it? That I love, but I'm struggling with the neck pickup being too bass heavy and muddy. I've tried EQing, but that throws the bridge sound off. Any tips? Yes, I do have a very specific tip for you. Now, not everyone's comfortable with doing their own guitar modifications, and if you're not, take it to somebody. But this is a custom shop Strat. Here's one they made a while ago. Not a maple one like you've got, but anyway. The traditional wiring for Strat 3 pickups is the bridge pickup is not wired to the tone pot. The middle and the neck are wired to their own tone pots. So this would be the tone pot for the neck pickup. This would be the tone pot for the middle pickup. Lots and lots of newer Strats have the mod by where the middle tone control is kind of bridged so that it can control the bridge pickup and the middle pickup. Takes a little bit of bite off of the bridge, which some people really like. I used to really like it on my blue Strat and certainly on some custom shop Strats, because it enables you to roll off a little bit of that wiry, spiky top end. Now, problem comes when you then have an imbalance between, so you're saying this one's too woolly compared to this one. What you can do, Matt Schofield does this on his Strats, disconnect the neck pickup from the tone pot. Very, very, very easy mod. You just pull the wire off. On the 5-way switch or the 3-way, whatever it is your guitar's got, probably a 5-way these days. You will not believe how much that tone pot loads this pickup, and you'll get extra crispness and brightness in the high end if you just disconnect the tone pot. Now, that does mean that you then can't use it to make it go really woolly if you want. With due respect to anyone who does that, the only time I ever do it is if I'm faking a jazz sound in a comedy fashion, which is not really useful in actual music. So remove the tone pot from the switch that connects the neck pickup. If you find then that your bridge is too shrill or not shrill enough, just check if it's connected or not. But that's what I would do. For what it's worth, Dan does that on his telly as well. He has the bridge pickup connected to the tone pot, but he doesn't have the neck pickup. So the neck pickup is not connected to the tone pot for exactly the reason you mentioned. He wants the extra brightness and aliveness. You just get those really lovely high-end frequencies by not having it loaded by the tone pot. I hope that was helpful. I was thinking of doing it in my 61 actually, for the same reason that you say. So, good luck. Greg Johnson. Hello, Greg, with a double G. Is Greg's a double G here? I think it is, isn't it? Yeah. Greg, purveyor of fine fast food at very, very cost-effective prices. Anyway, Greg Johnson says, what are your thoughts on the Free the Tone Overdriveland? It's super touch sensitive to me, and I love the normal side, but I can't get along with the drive side. It is unruly to my ears. What are your experiences? Thanks. Well, lucky for you, Greg. Let's do this then. Bevis, if you could cut to camera number 2, please. Down here, you will see the Free the Tone Overdriveland. Try not to feel too sick while I do this. We're got a bit of a shine there. Let's try and... In fact, why don't you just cut back to me for a second? It's not autofocus, this one, so that looks about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, great.
Okay, so you can see it there. Hopefully you can see the various knob positions. You can certainly see it well enough, and if not, I'll explain. Okay, Free the Tone Overdriveland. Probably my favourite non-tube Dumble style overdrive pedal. It's got 2 modes. If you go back there, that's the normal mode. When the red light's on, that's the drive mode. I'm going to turn it on. I can't talk and play at the same time, so I'll explain what I'm doing beforehand. For me, I don't know what guitar you play, right, Greg? I use these pedals on the boost side. I use it for Strats, but I'm like you. I find the overdrive side a little bit hairy for Strats. You can change all that, obviously, with the EQ settings and the various bits and bobs. But for me, it is absolutely optimized with humbuckers. And I'm going to plug some humbuckers in a minute now so you can hear it. You can see by the way, it also has a variable voltage on the back. I set mine to about 15 volts. That's the way I like it the best for the balance of headroom and squash. Not that there is much squash at 15 volts. So let's get into it, and you can have a listen. I'm dearly hoping that everything works. do the audio, Bubbers?
Hello?
Do the audio. Okay, hopefully there weren't too many heart attacks. Well, I almost dropped the Les Paul there, strap locks. I really hope. Let me know if you could hear all of that properly, and that it was of adequate volume. We don't know exactly how loud the guitars are out there in the real world, but I hope what you heard on the Overdrive sound, it does have a lot of presence and bite. Now, one of the things that annoys me about a lot of modern Dumble pedals is they go for this very compressed, mid-range, heavy sound that is the sound of some Dumbles played by some people. But all the ones I've heard don't sound like that. They sound really aggressive, they sound really present and totally there in the high end. There's almost a fuzzy nature to the high end when you really get going with humbuckers. And for me, that sticks you in that land. I'm just going to put this down, pick up the computer and see what everyone is saying in order to react to that and make sure that you are hearing what I'm hearing.
Yeah, there's a few comments coming through.
Yeah, nice feedback. 67 and Matse says, I like the Warthog. Me too. Me too. I love the Warthog. Volume is good. Guitar amp toner 100%, Mick. Good. I'm pleased. I'm pleased. So, obviously, it is interacting with the amplifiers there and it's pushing them quite nicely. And you can see how cranked I've got the two drive sections. The last knob, which I think is called push, the one all the way on the right. Oh no, the penultimate knob is called push. The last one is drive. That is really, really significant in getting the fatness. And it's kind of like you need an optimum blend of the two things to make it really work. But that's how I like it set. You can see, I don't know if you can see, on the left-hand side, the little mini pot above the blue LED is the output level for the drive. It is on 9 o'clock, and you heard the boost in volume. So the thing has got absolutely crackers amount of level. And I set my normal level to somewhere between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, depending on what's required. So yeah, I hope that was helpful, Greg. tone is obviously subjective, and if it is that sort of more, try not to use a pejorative term like woolly, if you want that sort of mid-rich, super thick mid-range and bassy sound that a lot of people associate with a Dumble sound, then just roll the tone right off, and that will get you somewhere there. But that and the Kingsley Juggler Mark III, for me, get as reasonably close to that sort of classic, and in my case I'm talking about Robin's Dumble, right, because we have had some quality time with it, as reasonably close as it's possible to get, bearing in mind that it's not possible to get that close, because the thing is, well, you heard mine and Dan's reactions to it. I hope that was useful, Greg. Let's see what the people are saying. Nice feedback, says Evan Ward. Yeah, it's essential, man. You've got to play loud enough for feedback. Robbo's saying the talking volume is very low.
Just tickled it up.
Yeah, tickled it up a bit. Pauls, we just don't seem to be able to get much volume out of the voice mic, and I don't know why. I'm going to turn it up a bit. There you go. We've got about an extra 3 dB, I think. Yeah, it's really weird why we can't get any volume out of the voice mics. I don't quite get it, because they're metering pretty high. But
Wadey 1960 CS says, I must be doing something right. My HM2 settings are exactly like Mick's. Yes, win.
Good. Ron Dark says guitar sounding very good. Thank you, Ron. Okay, let's move along then. Hope that was helpful, Greg. Brian Garcia. Hello, Brian. Always good to hear from you, buddy. He says, Mick, last week I super chatted about my recently acquired Super Reverb and Vibratone. Finally opened it up. Turns out it has the original JBL D110F in it. Spoils aplenty. Wishing a speedy recovery to Dan. Oh, mate, that is really cool. Well, as luck would have it, Brian, I got a text from Scott McKeon middle of last week saying he's just got hold of a clone of Stevie Ray's Dumble from the sort of mid-80s live period, where he was running the Marshall, the Dumble, the Vibratone, the you know what I mean, the classic 1x15 Fenders, or maybe they were 210s, Vibroverbs, and he's going to bring it all in here on Wednesday, and we're going to have at it. So we're going to have a real go at the Stevie Ray sound with all that classic gear. So I hope you're enjoying it, Brian. Tony Cervello, or Cervello. Hey, Tony. Tony says, Mick, what is the weight and year of your Les Paul? Your R7 sounds so good, and I've heard you comment that it's really light, so I'm curious what light means. It's just under £8. I can't remember exactly. I do remember weighing it. Perhaps someone out there on the internet can help me. People keep asking how old it is, and I don't know. So I'm going to show you the serial number, and you can tell me. Okay. For those of you who can't see it, it is 76155. 76155. Now, problem is, do they use the serial numbers like they used to use back in the day? I don't know much about Gibson serial numbers. If anyone can identify it, please do. It is, for your information, Tony, it is an actual Murphy. And you can see the actual Murphys because down here it has a T and an M. I'll see if this camera can pick that up.
causing shadow.
And then it's sort of deliberate. I was trying to cause the light flare to go over the area where the T and the M is, but there's a very distinct M and a T just before it. Before Murphy Lab, and this was an actual Murphy, and the story is it belonged to my friend Neville. He walked into the guitar shop in Stonehouse in Gloucestershire, World Guitars, and he asked the question that he always asks when he goes in, what's the best guitar in the shop? And they all said it's this one, so he bought it. And a few years later, for whatever reason, he sold it to me, and I really love it. I am a huge fan of Les Pauls and how they sound and their position in rock music, and I love them when everyone else plays them. But I hadn't found one. I've owned a handful over the years. I hadn't found one that I really loved personally. Picked this one up, and something about it was like, oh yeah. Now, compared to Dan's R8, Dan's R8 sounds, to me anyway, like the quintessential Jimmy Page Les Paul tone. Rocky. Not entirely different from Bernie's Beast, actually, which I had the Bernie Marsden's Beast, which I had the great pleasure of playing. That was a 59. This one's lighter. It sounds lighter, is lighter in heft, and has more articulation on those top strings. Let me give you a listen to it. Go on then. Seeing as we can. One of the things that totally amazed me about this guitar was not long after I got it, Dan, dear Daniel, did the released G3, I think it was, and I played some of the guitars on it, and for the guitars that I played, every single sound on the G3 demo video is this guitar, and there's a bit of sparkly stuff near the beginning where you just wouldn't believe it was a Lester. So I'll see if I can dial up some of those bright sounds for you. Sorry about that. Again, I hope that's all coming through right. It's quite a lot of variances in volume, but you heard the Leicester, you heard it into the CXM 1978 reverb for that huge reverb, little bit of delay on there. Stepped on the Klon, then I stepped on the tube screamer as well just to get that real nose on it. But hopefully through all of that, you hear that the top strings are quite present. And it just has, yeah, it has a level of articulation. Sorry, my brain is in about 8 different places at once because I'm trying to hope that the audio is okay as well as play the damn guitar. But yeah, it's just, you know, sometimes they come along, don't they? A guitar comes along and you're like, wow, this is not usual, or at least not my experience to date. And yeah, I'd probably play that guitar live. I probably play it 30% of the time, maybe even 50 on some gigs. So yeah, hope that helps, Tony. The actual question you asked was how light it was, just under £8, and hopefully some people are going to say, yeah, so the 13th Duke of Wyborn is saying possibly 2006. In my head, I've got it in my head that it's a 2007, so, but I don't know that. 67 and Matse says, Murphy's Law for guitars. You ding your axe, price goes down $1,000. Have Tom Murphy ding it, it goes up $1,000. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. Very. Neil Pike says, very Mountain Time era Joe. Do you know what, Neil? I used to love when he did that. He had those metal topped guitars, Sigliotti, was it? Something like that. I remember seeing it at Shepherd's Bush when he was sort of starting to, on the up in the UK, maybe, I don't know, 2007, 2008, something like that. And he used to play that really sort of extended, beautiful thing. And yeah, man, yeah. So Jim B says 96, 2006 or 2016. Yeah, I wonder if it's 2006, you know. Don't know. Yeah. DMK 75 says last Murphy burst I saw was 12 grand. Ouch. Oh God. I suppose if the yeah, I mean, what are original bursts now? Insane money, aren't they? So let's move right along. Non-aligned says, what was the worst musical advice anyone ever gave you? The worst musical advice anyone ever gave you? For me, it was play what people want to hear. Because that just leads you down a road of self-hatred and not wanting to play the guitar anymore. Play what you want to play and nothing else. Unless it's your job, in which case you don't have a choice. But when it's not your job and you can play for fun like we do, play what you want to play and screw what the people want to hear. Might mean you have less gigs, but it means you'll stay playing the guitar longer, I think. Maybe there's a happy medium somewhere. Maybe. Anyone else receive some terrible advice? Maybe. See if anyone agrees with that. Simon V. RDJ says, are the Fingers of Tone still around the studio and will they feature in more TPS things? FOT. Somebody said last week it reminded them of the old Kenny Everett hands. For those of us of a certain vintage. You might remember that. They probably need to be a bit closer to the camera. The fingers of tone are definitely here. That's not a finger. And they will be used. The original, so one of the reasons we're experimenting with all of this live stuff, I want to just say thank you to Roland for loaning us this VR6 HD machine. Is it VR6 HD? I think it is. Which is an amazing video switcher with much better audio capabilities than the one we were using before, and it hopefully is going to allow us to do, he said, wildly gesticulating, hopefully it's going to allow us to do more things live, which has lots of benefits. Anyway, Bebbers switches to pedalboard cam. One of the issues we have with shooting live videos is in the post-production we can tell you that the clon is on. Because we can put a mask around it and it kind of lights up while everything else is dark. In this version of doing live switching, we can't do that very sensibly. So the fingers of tone were designed to be able to point at the pedals that were on, but in typically analog TPS fashion. Andrew Nuttall says, playing trombone in middle school was terrible. Play one note every 10 seconds. Talk about uninspiring. Yeah, maybe. JK Outdoors, what's the worst good guitar you have owned? I'm afraid I can't answer that. Tends to be anything even remotely modern in my experience. But there we are. I'm just going to do this. Just for the hell of it. I don't know, it just looked a bit hot to me. Tell me if it looks worse or better now. And with apologies to you being our guinea pigs. DMK75 says, a known guitarist said to me at the time, only a kid would use effects and a real guitarist don't need them. Leave effects alone. Well, I got loads of effects. Yeah, it's just crap in it. It's just bollocks. Look at all the great players that have used effects down the years. Good. Jim B, hello Jim. Your super chat says, hey DNM, Jim B. When playing a chord melody, do you keep the melody notes in the same intervals of the chords? The third or the fifth? I think it depends on the tune, doesn't it? I think when you get started with that stuff, in order to learn your triads and stuff, it's good to keep the intervals the same, if I'm understanding you correctly. It's something that I'm not very good at, something that Dan would certainly be able to explain. Like if you play... If you're learning your triads... Oh no, this wouldn't work because that would be... You know when you do the... Yeah. No. Basically when you're learning your 135, 531, 315 in versions of chords. I have to really think about it, and I'm no good at it, but it's a really great way to quickly be able to get around to understand where the root, the fifth and the third is, and the idea of that being you can go pretty much anywhere from there. Now, you're talking about actual chord melody. Yeah, I think it depends on the tune, doesn't it? Because you've got to be playing the correct bass note and the correct melody note. And I think the general... I'm on really shaky ground here because it's not something that I do or have much knowledge of. But when I watch other people doing it, I think the idea of it is keeping the economy of movement so that you're not going 1, 4, 5, 1. You're going 1, 4, and then either there or there. 5, so that you're, and then even more complex than that. Anyway, as you can see, I'm just dreadful at it, but I think it's about economy. It's about knowing the intervals of the chords. But yeah, if you're talking instead just about, say, harmonizing a major scale, I got one of those wrong. Obviously, your chords relative to G major are major, minor, minor, major, major, oh, minor, and then the half diminished one, and then you get back to the major again. As you can see, my theory knowledge is really bad. So yes, in that instance, I'm sorry if this is confusing, if you are harmonizing a major scale, so you've got the root and the third, then yes, the intervals are the same. I hope I didn't misunderstand the question. Maybe some people are diving in to the chat to answer. That's the kind of stuff that one should spend lots of time doing, but I don't. I just don't. My brain turns to Scrabble. I do wonder, I'd be really interested in your thoughts on this. So, if any of you out there are dyslexic, for example, dyslexia is really interesting because, as I am given to believe, when someone who has dyslexia looks at a page of text, certainly if it's a complex page of text, it just turns into gobbledygook. The symbols all mix up and they look very different. And there are some things that I have been told that can be done to help dyslexics read by doing things like putting coloured sheets over, etc., which make the code, if you like, the code of letters to make up words, phrases and sentences, to make that code more breakable. Now, I have this absolute mental block on musical theory. When I sit down and I try and learn it, even when I spend a few hours doing it, it just turns to gobbledygook for me. There's no... Some people will say it's the most logical thing in the world, and I know people who just get it, just get it, just get it, just get it. And I'd be interested to hear from anyone who was like that and then found a route to understanding it. Bless him, Tim Lurch. Tim, if you're on tonight, hello. Tim wrote me this lovely breakdown of it, explaining it, and I read that and I read it and I read it and I studied it, and it's still like, I find it very hard to understand. And that's from somebody who can understand certain things in a highly complex fashion, like software and computers and stuff. But yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested. Whether it's a cognitive gap, for want of a better phrase, or whether I'm just lazy, which is also possible. Lords of Form says, nice trainers, they fit with that 335. Yeah, I bought these off. You can spec your own Air Force Ones at the Nike shop, and I did it because they were TPS colours. Back along. Folly, isn't it? BV says, my gold top apparently is 2006. Thank you, BV. Mr. Guitar says, I want Dan to do a video on ADD, attention deficit disorder. I would really appreciate his input. It is fascinating. It is completely fascinating. All of that. Dan has said a few times that he thinks he might be on that particular part of the spectrum. And in recent years, I guess we all know, it used to be, sorry, it's a bit, I'll keep it brief. It used to be something nobody talked about, and it used to be a bit shameful, and it used to be something that people were put down for and all the rest of it. And in recent years, it's become to be seen much more as a superpower of sorts, because not only does it perhaps change the way in which you need to learn some things, it also makes you utterly unbeatable in some other things. So, but then that in itself is a massive reduction because the topic is so wide and so massive. But needless to say, we're fascinated about it too. Maybe. Vincent Bull. Hello, Vincent. Vince wants to know, what does the 61 Strat weigh out of interest? I think it's about 3.2 kilos, 3.3, something like that. Blue was 3.5. And it's a bit lighter than that. Sorry, I don't know the pounds. I know Gibson weights in in pounds and Fender weights in kilos. Weird, I know. And I think when it was refinished, so the guy that owned it originally was a guy whose stage name was Daniel Boone, not Daniel Boone, the classic era actor, but Daniel Boone, the writer, producer, artist, who was around in, I think, 70s, 80s and 90s, predominantly speaking. And that was his guitar, and it toured all over the world, and it spent quite a bit of its life stripped back to bare wood. When he gave it to his son Simon, Simon had it refinished, and I think the finish has added quite a bit of weight. There may be some poo-pooing of that statement, but I know it to be true. So I don't know what it would be were it not refinished and the original Nitro had had a chance to kind of go ultra hard and mostly wear off like they do on those old guitars. But yeah, I think it's about 3.3, 3.2, something like that. Chris Egg. Hello, Chris. Chris says, I'm fortunate enough to suffer from both dyslexia and dyscalculia. Dyscalculia, my apologies. Which is dyslexia, but for numbers. For some reason, my music theory clicks with me really naturally, but I can't read a clock. That is absolutely fascinating. And thank you for saying that, Chris, because it much more eloquently expresses what I was trying to express earlier. The building blocks that cognition happens. Yeah, mad. Chris Quinn says, I struggle between attention to hyperfocus. The older I get, the more I do things where I can access the hyperfocus. Yeah, hyperfocus is really, really, really interesting. I've seen it. Okay, let's move along. Simon V. RDJ says, get well, Dan and his friend Mike Birch, who you mentioned to us last week, Simon, who was in hospital recovering. So yeah, get well to Dan and Mike, and indeed anyone who is suffering. There's a lot of it about at the moment. Matt McGrath, the last super chat today. I will just check that it is the last, but Matt says, no question today, so please take one from the chat, and I hope Dan is on the mend. Yeah, I think he is on the mend. Kevin Curran says, can't wait to see Dan back, but Mick, you're killing it holding down the fort by yourself. Not an easy task. Thank you. Katherine is helping me, I have to say.
Lords of Form keeps asking a question.
Who?
Lords of Form.
Okay, Lords of Form. Lords of Form wants to know. And I think the question is, typical year for the thinnest Strat neck. I'm going to say 5960. If you're talking classic era. Seems to me, in the 50s, they were quite chunky. We got that V thing in 56, 57. I played some 58s that have a hint of that, but go back to a more C. Played quite a few late 59s and 60s that do seem quite slim. Now, let's also say that there were custom options. You could have it thinner, I believe. But let's talk about standard net width and the sort of rear profile. And then it seems to me that through 61 into 62 and 63, they start to get fatter. And this is on average, right? So you'll always find outliers. But I would say 59 into 60, classically, the thinnest ones. Now, what's happened in the latter era, who the hell knows? I think they varied so massively it would be very hard to say. I don't know what happened in the CBS era. This one's a 70, right? 1970. 4-bolt, Jimmy era Strat, really. Big headstock. again, was refinished. This guitar was owned by Ainsley Lister, and he sold it to me, for which I'm eternally grateful. Thank you, Ains. It's a crazy vibey guitar. Now this, on the 60s ones, particularly my 61, and it really, really happens on the 62s and 63s, front to back depth about here starts to get really fat, and it comes out and they get really thick, and mine's like that, and I flipping love it, and my custom shops like it as well. This one not so much. It has a more even taper all the way up, but it's just like, it's got a fair amount of shoulder, and by shoulder we mean these sort of thirds. So you've got the middle of the back of the neck, which is where you measure the depth, but in terms of feel, the shape of the shoulder thereafter has a significant effect. So if you think of a V-shaped neck, it's going to have less shoulder. If you think of a really clubby C, or what you might think of as a U neck on the old broadcasters and telecasters, that's going to have much more shoulder. And even though that depth at the down here might not be that much, because it's got all that extra meat around the shoulders of the neck, it's going to feel massive in the hand. So it's not all about depth. You probably already know that. Yeah. Nice. My 61 has, having played lots and lots and lots and lots of them now, just a bang tidy typical 61 neck. Not fat or unmanageable at all. In fact, it's thinner than the, less depth than the 70, and as I said, you get that real increase in taper in depth more up here, and I love that because some people play like this, right? You know, thumb behind the neck and all that, 4 fingers. Rock players, some people do, and for that I think it can be a bit uncomfortable. I don't do that. Down here, the hand is pretty much always quite often thumb over, so the extra, not too thick down here is good. But then by the time I'm up here, the hand is much more, and I'm digging in much more up here, so to have the extra purchase of the thicker neck, I just love it. Because so much of the thumb and the back of the hand is taking the weight. But if you're a lighter player, maybe it's not so groovy. Or could just be something that you're used to. As I say, that's classic era in my experience. People may differ, and of course what happened then from through the 70s into the 80s as CBS kind of changed everything, and then the new Fender company from about 83, was it? Something like that. Yeah. All bets are off after that. Do we have any more super chats? Matt's was the last one that I can see. I will just check to see if any more came in. No, Matt's was the last. Cool. So we'll keep going for another 20 minutes or so, and let's see what everyone is saying. Steenmeyer says, I played a fully original 59 at Matt's guitar shop, and it was really chunky, fatter than the 60s, it felt. Yeah, there you go. I guess. Doggy Dog says, ever get your hands on the 59 Esquire C that the custom shop seems to employ quite a bit? It's got a 0.79 to 9.7 taper. Interestingly enough, oh no, it's not. It's not. I was going to say that's what Dan's butterscotch telly is, but it's not. It's really funny. I know some people are just so specific about neck dimensions. I'm really not. I've got the Strat's pretty small. The 345 is really small, and the 335 is absolutely massive. It's like a 58 super clubby profile that they did. What I find is that the guitar then, you approach it and play it differently, and something different comes out of it. And I like that. I like the difference. The thing I don't like is really, really, really tiny thin ones. But then again, the 345, 65, they started getting thin. They went to the reduced nut width. I thought, I'm never going to be able to play this guitar. Play that guitar all day long. So, yeah, I don't know. Joey Duno. Happy Monday, Mick. Have you ever been tempted to play Sirs instead, or is your PRS your go-to for modern playability? I don't really like modern playability, Joey. I can't play guitars with low actions and that are super slinky. So if you play my PRSs, you'll see that they've got the actions jacked up and 11s, and you know, they'll be almost as uncomfortable to play as my Strats. So yeah, I'm not a massive fan of modern playability, of low action, easy to play guitars. I can't play them. But the thing, and this is moderately controversial, but it's an opinion nonetheless. I just don't like guitars that aren't nitro. I like the way it feels. I like the way it looks. I like the way it scratches. And there's very little that's objective about that. It's purely subjective, and it's you know, it's a mind position and a chosen belief, you might say. But I don't want any guitars that aren't nitro. It's bad, isn't it? I also don't like conical radius fingerboards. I just find them hard to play. Purely, not for any objective reason, but just purely because all the guitars I've played ever since I was young, if it's a Fender, it's 7.5, and if it's a Gibson, it's 12, and that's what I know. And that's kind of what I expect from the guitar. And when it's different, I struggle a bit. But again, it's not objective. Doesn't mean that other people. I know so many people that can't stand the 7.25 radius Fender board. Sometimes people come to experience days, they pick up my guitars, they're like, nah, not for me at all. So it's all personal, and entirely subjective. There you go. Dobiog says, have you ever experimented with alternative pickguard materials, aluminium, brass and wood, etc.? If so, any thoughts? Yeah, we caused quite a bit of controversy on this when Rabia Masad came on the show. And I say we caused controversy. It was a controversial debate. When he was developing his pickups with bare knuckle, Rabia discovered he's got this custom shop 55 Strat, I think it is, and it's got an aluminium pickguard, the gold anodized pickguard. And they discovered through the R&D, obviously Tim Mills already knew this because he knows his scheisser, that having an aluminium pickguard or a plastic one would change the sound of the pickups. And he said this on the show, and a lot of people were like, you're on drugs, mate. That's just not possible. Well, it is entirely possible. And if you talk to people who know what they're talking about, and if you get into physics, you'll know things about eddy currents and all the rest of it, etc., etc. It does make a difference. The aluminium guards definitely sap a bit of high end. Wood, I don't know. I mean, yeah, literally no idea. So yeah, So yes, aluminium and plastic definitely sound different with Strat pickups. Wood and all that, yeah, I don't know. Never experimented. Stands to reason that anything that affects. I need to be careful here. So number one, there's a magnetic field relationship between string and pickup. Secondly, there is a harmonic and resonant relationship between what's happening on the guitar and how it is re-exciting that string. So anything that changes any of that surely is going to have a tonal effect. surely. Like if you play loud and what's coming out of the speaker starts to re-resonate the strings, that's going to have a tonal effect. So yeah, I guess it all has an effect, doesn't it? We're not allowed to say these things anymore, are we? Because we all know that it does. Francesco Alemano is really keen to know about the Vertex Ultraphonics and SSS. What do you think? I know Vertex is controversial as a brand, but from the videos I think they sound great and I'm tempted by them. We tried the SSS, I think. I haven't spent enough time. I haven't spent enough time with them to sort of garner an opinion. So there's parts of the stuff that we play, right, that is very significantly inspired by old gear. This is going to be a conversation about Me Too products, about using people's names when they haven't agreed to it, about all of that. So if we just cut to the pedal board for a second. This pedal here, the Analog Man Sun Face, is a fuzz face, right? It's a Dunlop fuzz face, but it's in a smaller box. The circuit is almost the same, and Analog Man has really learned it. Same with the treble booster. The Tone Bender was a collaboration between the original IP owners of the Tone Bender and Boss, etc., etc., etc. There's a pedal on this pedal board down here which isn't turned on, and I will just turn it on. Take a second to come on. Called the Overdriveland, right? We talked about it earlier. Free the Tone Overdriveland. It is a Dumble inspired pedal, and Yuki uses the word Dumble explicitly in his marketing. I've definitely been through periods where if somebody uses a picture of somebody and says this pedal sounds like them, and that person is not in the game, so to speak, I find that a little off-putting. And I also find straight kind of this sounds like this Dumble, I find that slightly off-putting as well. So I'm not drawn to those kind of products. And I think some of Mason's products in the past have done that. So that might be why we didn't engage fully. How do they sound? Presumably very good. We did have a Steel String Singer, I think it's called, on. Yeah, but that's just my thoughts on it. Again, purely personal. It's almost hypocritical. I say I like original stuff. Like, I don't like Fenders that don't say Fender on. But there's plenty of stuff in here that isn't original, that is inspired by classic kit. So I don't know where the line is, really. Just thinking out loud. Just thinking out loud. David Tompkins, have you tried a Strandberg Endure neck? Surprisingly good to play. Yeah, that's the real V one, presumably, you're talking about. I have tried one. I don't know if I could ever... I don't know. Yeah, would be interesting to try and do a gig with one. Yeah. Raoul says, Mick, what's your current equipment for practicing at home? Literally a guitar, an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar. I don't plug in at home. It's too much hassle. And I think we talked about this in a previous VCQ. I do practicing in two ways. When I'm at home and I'm learning songs, I don't want to. I'm not thinking about tone at all. I'm not interested in it. What I want is to learn the notes, the chords, the relationship, and because I'm quite often singing, those two things happen symbiotically. Once I've got the notes and the chords and all of that under my fingers, I then leave home, come here, plug in, play loud, and then treat that as a separate part of the learning. So yeah, I don't plug in at home. What I find is Dan is diametrically opposed to this view, so he does it differently. I don't want to play any plugged in sound that isn't my plugged in sound, that isn't loud, because it really screws my playing. If I'm turned on, it's got to be loud, and it's got to be virtually gig volume. Otherwise, I find a lot of the stuff that happens kind of doesn't happen as effectively. So yeah, I don't play at home. Actually, one of the reasons Dan and I ever got into all this in the first place is because we wanted to have a place where we could go and play loud and wig out and do that. Before that, I would hire a rehearsal studio and take my gear down there, set up, play loud, and do it that way, because it's just not possible at home. Dan loves the Waza Air headphones, the Boss Waza Air headphones, because he tends to do his practice early in the morning before anyone else in the house wakes up. So he loves the Waza Air headphones, and he sticks them on. He can be in his own little world doing all of that. He also loves the Yamaha THR amp, although again not really usable at home for him because he needs to be silent. So yeah, hope that's useful. Actually, my actual practice thing at home would be my computer, because I might be doing a TrueFire course or a what was the most recent one I did? Would have been, what's the guy's name? Jack Roosh. Did Jack Roosh's Brett Papa course, and I'm very happy just to sit there with the guitar unplugged, maybe a semi-acoustic so you've got a bit of noise coming out, and just learn the notes. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of people coming in on the pickguard debate. Catherine's reminding me not to say I hope. I say a lot.
There's a question from Thomas Eichinger.
Yeah. Thomas Eichinger says, will an AC-15 have enough clean headroom for a 500 people venue? On its own, no, not even nearly. But mic'd through a PA with good monitoring, yes. Just depends how loud you've got it. But yeah, I mean, unmiked, no way. I'm not sure. I think my 2-Rock would struggle in a 500 people venue for straight clean headroom. That's a lot of people, 500 people. Depends what your stage volume is. If your stage volume is low and you've got great monitoring and everything's sensitively mic'd, you could probably use something even smaller than that, but an AC-15 would be fine. Point being, you can't turn it past the point where it starts overdriving. So as long as you can hear it and the monitoring is good, that's fine. But if your monitoring isn't good and you need to turn it past that, then no, it won't. So it's entirely gig, band, stage and equipment dependent, I would say.
He says, of course, I mean mic'd up.
Yes. Yeah, of course, mic'd up, you say, Thomas. Yeah, well, it really depends on the extent of the monitoring. Because if the guitar is a non-overdriving AC-15 is quite a quiet thing, but I know plenty of bands now that are either silent or have like radically low stage volumes, so it would be loud enough for that, but certainly not loud enough for an average 2 guitars, bass and drums rock band. Don't think you'd get above a snare drum with an AC-15 clean, for example, without loud monitors. I said again. My Secret Machine says, hi Mick, I remember some time ago you were planning to go to the US and visit Tom Bukovac. Is it still on the works? We did talk about it briefly. A guy named Jim Walsh was helping us put something together, and then time ran out and it just didn't happen. We couldn't put it together in time. Maybe next year, maybe in the spring. Maybe. I don't mean to sound unenthusiastic. I would flipping love to hang out with Tom Bukovac, make videos and do all of that. The logistical reality of doing it at this point in time is somewhat trepidatiously daunting. Mick says, Baltoli20, will you be picking up a 2 Rock Burnside after trying one? I love mine and will be adding a Morgan AC20 for wet dry. I've no plans to get one immediately, Baltoli, because I don't have any money, but I'm pretty sure that as the years tick by, if we look at the trajectory in the life I have experienced, gigs have got quieter and amps have got smaller. I don't play anywhere near as much as I used to. And this, for the majority of gigs I play these days, is utterly and completely unusable. So I can absolutely see 2 Burnsides in my future as a killer wet dry rig that would be loud enough to do anything I'm likely to do from that point on. I was blown away at the sound of that thing, and I don't know, but my supposition is that it's the least popular 2 Rock. I don't know, maybe Eli could tell us if it is or not, but it's tiny. I mean, that's one thing, isn't it? £2,500 for an amp that's that big. Second hand. I think I want a bigger one for that much money. But the sound of it was flipping killer. 2 of them, I'm desperate to try 2 of them wet dry. I think it would be basically like 2 Pro Juniors on steroids. Like I say, that is like a super reverb on steroids. I think the 2 Burnsides would be like 2 Pro Juniors on steroids. That would be bloody awesome. So yes, thank you for the question. Okay, we're going to do one more question and then we'll say cheerio. With thanks to everyone that's been with us. Thank you, BV, for being in the comments and doing all the good work in there. We really appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much. Send best wishes to Dan. Because he's really not very well, the poor lamb. So we'll do one more question and then I'm going to play the guitar. Yeah. Cup of coffee on Dan's chair. Tusk, tusk. Says Lords of Form. Okay, one final question. Do. Oh, come on. Come on. Just a question mark is all I seek. There was one here, there was one here, there was one here. Schromer Jr. says, what's the best way to make enough money to pay rent just from playing guitar in 2024? Yeah. I think the reality, so number one, get on a massive tour with a high-ranking artist. That is unlikely. Number two, you need multiple income streams. Most jobbing guitar players I know these days, most musicians do things like, depends what level you want to be at, function bands, low-level session stuff, maybe some YouTube channel, maybe some demos for gear companies, etc., etc. Put all that stuff together, start getting seen. Start getting paid to do little bits and bobs here and there, because you're never going to get it from one income stream straight off the bat. So you just have to start slow and build. Do stuff, turn up on time, be good, be nice, do a great job. It ain't easy. Dan and I both know any number of utterly immense guitar players who aren't exactly rolling in cash. So yeah, you need to do all the other stuff as well. Okay, I want to play the guitar. Thanks for being with us. I'm going to play my 345. Woo! Thanks for being with us. We'll see you Friday. I'm not entirely sure what the video is going to be yet because we haven't shot it, which is not very sensible. Is this camera still on? Awesome. I'm going to play you out. Normally it's Dan that gets to play you out, but today it's me. I'm very happy.
Got all your shoes on?
I think so. Got all the shizzle. Thanks for being with us, everyone. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. This is a little peek into what happens on that pedal show. This is where you'd see an edit because the flipping guitar isn't in tune. Sorry about that. I have this theory that guitars hate not being played and they go out of tune.